Honestly, this is just plain incredible. This is the best way to play your PC games on the go. Forget the Steam Deck. In many parts of the world, the Steam Deck still isn't officially available anyways, and to be frank, the hardware is a little old by today's standards. So here's the better Steam Deck. The ROG Ally boasts the latest AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme and it performs admirably. We are talking up to 60 frames per second in Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p or up to 120 frames per second in Devil May Cry 5. What can we say? We are just impressed. It's no surprise at all that when Valve did the unthinkable, everyone went bonkers. The Steam Deck ushered in a new era of gaming, something which many of us never thought possible. Now, it's true that there's been many kind of handheld PC consoles even before the Steam Deck, but the Steam Deck brought in the much needed support and software for such a device to really flourish. I mean, just look at it now. Just knowing whether a game is deck verified or not really changes the way you approach gaming. It's that mark of trust that in the fact that developers are actively working on optimizing for the Steam Deck that really makes it really awesome. That is the Steam Deck's biggest advantage. But if you're expecting anything more than 720p gaming, you'll be out of luck because the APU in the Steam Deck is a little old by now. So here comes the ROG Ally with the brand spanking new AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme. In a nutshell, this is an amazing experience unlike anything before it. But before we get to that, let's touch on the design a little bit. In all honesty, the overall design and ergonomics of the Ally is pretty similar to that of the Steam Deck. While we might not have the Steam Deck with us to directly compare, the Ally has been really comfortable to hold for long periods at a time. The grips do feature a deep enough handle for most hands, and the use of texture lines and a cross-hatch pattern on the back provides enough grip even in the most intense of gaming sessions. In addition, it's also a tad lighter at about 608 grams, which helps a little bit as well. We are also quite digging the white colorway, which complements really well with the PS5, might we add. Though it does get dirty pretty easily, so here's hoping that there will be other colorways available in the future. Maybe black, red, blue, a combination of the two, who knows. The main difference between the Steam Deck and the Ally, however, comes down to the layout. Unlike the Steam Deck, which features a symmetrical layout with a custom touchpad, the Ally uses a more traditional asymmetrical layout like you would find with an Xbox controller. Honestly, it simply feels great and we have basically no qualms with regards to the layout and the comfort and the feel of the button presses. The only thing we do find a little lacking would be the thumbsticks. They are just a little too light for our liking and we do find ourselves overcompensating most of the time. The next big difference would be the display. While the Steam Deck featured a 7-inch IPS display with a resolution of 1280 by 800 running at 60Hz, the Ally features a 7-inch IPS display with a resolution of 1920 by 1080 running at 120Hz. It also supports FreeSync Premium, covers 100% sRGB, has a 7 millisecond response time with a max brightness of 500 nits. Needless to say, it's a fantastic display and a huge upgrade all around. Now, sure, the aspect ratio is more of the traditional 16:9 instead of 16:10, but we dare say that this actually works better with most games out there. Interestingly enough, there's actually enough of a bezel on the top and bottom that if shaved off, would probably be able to fit a 16:10 display with no issues at all. Perhaps ROG is holding this out for the next iteration, who knows? But right now, it's still fantastic. We do love it. Speakers are positioned on the front, similar to the Steam Deck, and they do sound surprisingly great. Now they get pretty loud for one, but two, they do not distort at max volume either. There's also a surprising amount of thump for the mids and the low ends. As for the I/O, it's all on the top, and you'll get the 3.5mm headphone mic combo, a micro SD card slot, the XG mobile connector, which is also where you'll find the Type-C port that's part of it, the volume rocker, and the power button, which also houses the fingerprint sensor. Now here is also where you'll find the dual exhaust fans for the dual fan cooling system, which sucks in cold air from the back and blasts the hot air out the top, which, by the way, works fantastically. Which leads us to talk about the performance. And this is where the ROG Ally is just seriously impressive. For our model, we have the AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme, 16GB of LPDDR5, 6400MHz RAM, and 512GB of PCIe Gen 4 SSD storage. Now, because the Ally is the first such device that we are reviewing on this channel, we wanted to go a little more in-depth with it and curate our testing a little. So we are taking a look at 3 games in particular: Cyberpunk 2077, Devil May Cry 5, and Genshin Impact. And we'll also be going through them in the 3 main power profile settings available that's on the Ally. To note, all our testing was done only on the battery power to better reflect the real-world performance and the use case. Now, this is probably going to be a little lengthy with quite a few graphs, so we do advise you to take note of the power profile in use as well as the graphics setting, and in particular for Cyberpunk, we do also explore the different FSR performance as well. So if all that's it, let's roll the graphs. So, as you can tell, we were pretty impressed with the performance and the visual fidelity that you can get from the Ally. It's definitely way better than what the Steam Deck offers. And if we were to talk about temperatures and acoustics, the Ally is in a class of its own. On the turbo profile, we are looking at about 84 degrees Celsius during gaming load. On the performance profile, that drops to just about 65 degrees Celsius. And on the silent profile, that drops to a mere 50 degrees Celsius. And no matter which profile you're using, the fans are really silent. But we then come to battery life, and this is where things aren't that perfect. For games such as Cyberpunk 2077, using the turbo profile really provides a substantially better gaming experience. But with the APU using up to 40 watts constantly, you're looking at just about an hour of gameplay on a full charge. Using the performance profile drops the wattage down to about 22.5 watts in most scenarios, and in our testing, that provided us about 1 hour and 45 minutes of gameplay on a full charge. Lastly, we have the silent profile, and that limits the APU to just 13.5 watts, and it certainly yields the best battery life, allowing you to play for almost 3 hours. If you're wondering about the optimal settings to play the 3 games that we tested on the Ally, here's our suggestion. Compared to the Steam Deck, which can technically last you anywhere from 2 hours to 8 hours as claimed on their website, or so, depending on the load, it certainly isn't the best. And this is where we reckon that the Ally's biggest advantage is also its biggest flaw. Being able to run full-blown Windows 11 is amazing, and it allows you basically play any game that you will want to. But Windows in itself is a really heavy operating system. There's just so many layers to it and so many background processes that are constantly running, which sip on the battery bit by bit. There was even one time where we were playing Cyberpunk 2077 and we just paused the game, hit the power button and put the Ally to sleep and chucked it in the bag, only to find out that the fans had still been running the entire time it was in the bag, heating up the entire system, and well, when we got it out, it just had about 20% battery left. It's just weird quirks that happen with Windows from time to time. To that extent, the use of the physical controls to navigate the Windows desktop, it's practically impossible. At least Windows has decent touchscreen support, so save yourself the trouble and always use the touchscreen outside of Steam Big Picture. But despite all that, do we very much still like the Ally? Absolutely. There's just nothing else quite like it at the moment, especially for the price. Now, to be fair, we actually don't know the actual pricing at the time of filming this, which is a couple of days before the embargo lifts, but Asus has definitely confirmed with us that it'll retail for less than $1,000. The Steam Deck 256GB model retails for $529, while the 512GB model retails for $649. So here's our educated guess. We reckon that the Ally with the Ryzen Z1 will retail for about $599, while the Ryzen Z1 Extreme will retail for perhaps $729. Now again, that's our educated guess. We'll update the official pricing in the description and via a pinned comment down below. Let's see how far off the mark we are. But essentially, the prices we guessed are basically the maximum we feel that Asus can charge or should charge. Any higher and it's going to be a very, very expensive purchase for what it is. Overall, however, if price isn't a concern, we are still mightily impressed by what Asus and AMD have managed to produce. To just put things into perspective, this gaming handheld has basically more performance than a PlayStation 4 while consuming a fraction of the power. And you can take it on the go. That is insane. On that note, we are also simply excited at the gaming landscape once again. Things are getting really interesting, and this new kid on the block is certainly going to turn up the heat for the fierce competition that will inevitably occur. Right now, I guess we are even more excited for what the next Steam Deck will be capable of, and to that end, perhaps even a successor to the Nintendo Switch. If you have always wanted a Steam Deck but it's not officially available in your country, or it's pretty hard to get, or perhaps you're still waiting for the more powerful Steam Deck 2, well, perhaps you might want to take a look at the ROG Ally instead. Anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to take a look and answer them. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to us for more of such content, and follow us on all our other social channels. And we'll catch you in the next one. See ya!